Hi guys, Andreas Myra from AME. I'm here to show you how to build the T-Shox version 2 properly. Have some tips and tricks on how to get it mounted in a good way. So we're gonna start by putting the O-ring, the guidance shim, into the shock housing. First you take either a little bit of silicone oil or even better a bit of grease, and you put that on the O-ring. Rub it around a bit so it gets a bit moist, and you put it inside. Very easy. Push it down into the shock body. After that you put the guidance shim on top of that. Nothing spectacular. Use a tool for the clips. And mount that, put it inside until you hear a snap, and that's how you put the bottom O-ring and the guidance into the shock body. Same procedure is for the bladder, which goes into the top cap. Again, you put some grease onto the bladder to make it easier to go into the shock cap. It goes in from the bottom with this part going into the top. You will need to push it in a little bit, jerk it around a bit. After that, you make sure to push it all the way into the top cap. You can use a tool. Just don't make sure you cut anything on the silicone, but it's normally very easy. From the top again, you use the guidance shim. Put this inside. Again, put the clip with the tool from the top, and that's already half of the complete mount. Spring collar, normal. Screw it on up until the top. So the piston and the shock shaft is already pre-mounted, as you will notice, so nothing you need to do here except that put it into to the shock body. Since the O-ring is already a little bit greased, you can push it through without any bigger issues. Move it up and down a bit to get some of the grease on the shaft. Then you can use the T-Shox mounting tool to get some stability for the shock. Some high-grade silicone oil. We normally start with 500 CST. It's a very good start for carpet or asphalt. Later on I will tell you some setup tips which you can use. Fill it up, and of course you need to get the bubbles out. The bubbles is normally at the bottom where the O-ring, between the O-ring and the house, so the oil needs to go into that area and the air needs to go out. So move it up and down a little bit to get the big air things out. And normally you should put in a vacuum pump, electrical one like Pink Arrows, or a right version where you pump it manually to get the air out. Then make sure to fill it up, and you have the top cap. Put a little bit of silicone oil inside. This is just to make sure that there's no air from the top going in. You only need to do this when the bladder or the membrane is new. And pull it all the way down. It doesn't matter where you have it really, since the rebound will always be perfectly zero anyway, but it's easier to get it mounted this way. Use the tool, hold it straight, so don't angle it, because then the oil runs out and you might get air into the shock. And put on, turn, and the excess oil will run out. And then you just need to wipe it off, and the shock is almost finished. So just take some paper, wipe the excess oil off the shock. You can also use a little bit of cleaner if you want to, depends. Just clean it up, and as you will see, I just build it very fast. You put a shit in and it's obviously complete zero rebound because there's no excessive volume inside. So wherever you put it, it will stop. And that's basically how you build it. It's very, very simple, very straightforward. And the good part is that all the shocks will always be the same. Then for the mounting, we have a mounting shim. It goes to the back side of the shock, so you have the flank to the back, and this will be mounted onto the car. So we finished the shock, and now it's time to put on the bottom part, which you use from your regular car. Be sure to use a shock tool for holding the shock shaft. It's very important so you don't scratch the shock shaft. And then just normally screw it on. Make sure that the distance here is always the same between the left and the rear, left and the right shock. Front and rear doesn't necessarily need to be the same, but left and right on the front or the rear axe needs to be the same. So after that, you mount the spring in the usual way. Put some tension on the spring, of course. So mounting it on a car is normally very easy. Start with the top part, just like that, and screw it into the shock tower. When you tighten it, it needs to be tight, but don't use too much force and then you'll break it. In the beginning this will be a little bit tight, which is okay because it will be run in quite fast. Something very important is, since there's less movement here and then in a conventional shock, you cannot put too much angle on the shock compared to the shock tower. So ideally you should have 90 degrees from the shock tower to the shock, which means that you need to add some shims, or at least double check to make sure that you get it straight. So I already put a shim here additionally to make sure that the distance that the shock will be mounted at a 90 degrees. And as you will see, it depends obviously, of course, on what wheelbase you're running. If you have the arm more to the rear, you need to double check that you have a smaller shim. Actually, you should do this also on the regular shocks, but on this one it's a little bit more important. So as you see, it moves freely here, and that's basically it. So this is how you build it. As you will see, it will be mounted and moves really nicely. And I hope you enjoy and have fun.